guys? It's your girl Kiya.
And it's your boy Jalen.
Alright, so today we're going to be going over Toph, you guys. So last week we talked about whether or not Aang and Katara would be considered good parents.
They suck.
Go see for yourselves, guys, what we had to say about that topic. But today we'll be talking about two things concerning Toph in Legend of Korra. First of all, her family dynamic, how she raises her kids and so on. And second, her character development in Legend of Korra. First, we're talking about her family dynamic. By the way, you guys, this video does have spoilers, so if you haven't seen Legend of Korra yet, definitely you probably don't want to watch this video yet. So come back after you watch the
Hop over to
series.
Netflix.
Yeah, hop over to Netflix and give it and check it out, because you guys some spoilers in here.
I don't know. First of all, why the heck they got to outlive Sokka?
That's what I was trying to figure out too.
We're
definitely gonna talk about that in another video when we talk about Legend of Korra and our feelings on the series. So definitely stay tuned for that, because we got a lot of stuff we want to pull up about that. Alright guys, so let's talk about Toph. Now what we've known about Toph so far is that she created police officers, she created the whole metal bending type thing and created the whole police force type setup. And also, according to her family dynamic, you see that her family is definitely not tight in any type of way. If you compare her family with Aang and Katara's family, of course they made mistakes, but Toph, that's a whole bomb right there. It's just there was never any unity. It seemed like with any of her children, it didn't really seem like she had a close relationship with any of them. And so you see that Lin, the oldest daughter, has a lot of resentment towards Toph. She has a lot of resentment towards her younger sister as well, which is because of Toph. Because Toph, she wasn't really a mother figure that she she was supposed to be. So Lin had to end up taking up that responsibility, taking care of Lin. Lin took up the responsibility of her younger sister, who was getting into a lot of trouble. So it put her in a bad situation, giving her bad blood with her sister. Even after her sister had left, she had even more resentment, because it's kind of okay, you get to go live your life, but I'm stuck here. I've taken over my mother's job, so I'm doing this, and I'm stuck with all this baggage, and then you get to be free. And then mom gets to run off to, wherever she ran off to. So you see the family dynamic is very messed up when it comes to Toph and her children. What I can say about, as far as how I feel about how that goes, it kind of sucks to see that, because of course we know the type of character Toph is. And Toph is definitely not the type of character where if you're imagining, before Legend of Korra came out, if you're imagining what her family would have looked like, I wouldn't have seen no family. I honestly never thought they would have given Toph any children. But if I did imagine her with children, yeah, maybe one, at least one. But think of her as a mother, I would have thought maybe she would have had of course, she's always been the queen of tough love, but at the same time, it's just kind of the extent of that is just I guess it's kind of, it makes sense, but at the same time it doesn't make sense because of how extreme she is with how she raised her children. You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of strange to me to see it that extreme. So what I basically got from that was maybe it's just the fact that she didn't want to smother her children, because if you guys think about how she grew up, her parents, because of the fact that she was blind, thought that she wasn't really capable of doing anything herself. So and then even when they saw what kind of potential she had as an earthbender, they still were they wanted to protect her even more and keep her from being a great person that she was. So that drove her away from home. As much as she loved her parents, she had to leave in order to reach her full potential. And I think for her, she didn't want to smother her children to the point where they would leave her to that point. So I think she wanted them to grow and develop. But in doing that, she definitely neglected neglected her daughters. And so in that, she ended up having no relationship to them. It just turned into a whole thing of resentment, and it just wasn't a good situation. It was really sad to see that happen with Toph, because you think that after everything she's been through, she at least deserved to have a good family. But what upset me was the fact that she was apologetic, but she was just yeah, I made mistakes, and it's just kind of yeah. So I'm gonna go back to the swamp or whatever. I'm gonna go back to the trees and everything, but I know I made mistakes. I was dang, Toph, you have a whole family, you have grandkids, they weren't even really a part of their life. And I feel it was a good, I understand that she did show that she cared, because she was in the swamps and she was watching over them from a distance, but at the same time it's just kind of
That's not. It's even then. That's not necessarily consistent with who Toph was in Avatar.
Yeah, it still
because
was like,
she did have a tough love type aspect, and she was kind of she did have this kind of attitude where she was a little separate from everybody else. Not like she didn't really want to be bothered like that, but she was still she was still a very caring person, she did pull her weight in certain ways in Team Avatar. So I mean, even with the way that she dealt with Aang and Katara and all of them, she did have a sense of a family dynamic amongst them. So she knew how to show love and affection towards people because she had those friendships. So for her to become a mother and just completely behave like she doesn't like want her kids or that she doesn't love her kids, it's not consistent with the character that we were shown in Avatar. Even though the way she parented, which is sort of like, well, I'm not gonna hold you back from doing anything, that's consistent with Toph. But for her just to run away and not be with her kids, that's not something that's consistent with what we see in Avatar: The Last Airbender and who she is. Because in a sense, she's sort of forcing on her kids what she did to her parents. And that's not something that she would do either. So it's not that part's not necessarily consistent with who Toph is. Yeah,
that's what makes it disappointing. It's kind of like, well, you would think because of everything she went through growing up that she would have definitely tried to do things. I understand her trying to give them like space. She didn't want to be too like stern on them like her parents were on her, but she just completely just like seemed like she disconnected herself in a way from like her own children. And that was like very shocking to me. That's like, it really wasn't consistent, because even in Avatar: The Last Airbender, you see how close she is with them and how she started off being like, you know, she's always like the type where she kind of stuck to herself, but over time you see like that family type dynamic come in place with even just her friends. So you see that emotion from her, you see like how she cares about them, and you see that she really didn't show that with her children. Was odd to me, that even like when she would apologize to them, you think maybe she would change, but no, she just went back about her business after like being with them. So yeah, that's basically how I feel about that. It was very disappointing to see that taking place for her own family.
It doesn't make sense. That's the only aspect that doesn't really make sense to me, is it's not really consistent with her character. I mean, even then you would think that she would have spent more time trying to make her kids like her. In terms, like, it would have made sense for her kids to be like how she was. If anything, not to be, for Lin Beifong not to be police chief. It would have made more sense for Lin Beifong to be somebody who was defiant against the law. Somebody who was more like how Toph was, an adult version of how Toph was. That would have been something that's consistent with what Toph might have done. Taught her kids, oh, nah, buck the system. Don't do that. Go against that. Go against this. It sort of made more sense for there to be, okay, you got Tenzin, who's sort of a guy who upholds the law. He sticks really close to the books and making sure, oh yeah, no, we got to do this right, we got to do that right. And have somebody like Lin Beifong, like her mother, going against it, because that's how it was with Aang and Toph in the first place. Aang was a guy where, no, I think we should do this, be nice, and Toph was like, no, let's not do that, let's be this way. It would make more sense for Tenzin to be that way, being like Aang, and for Lin Beifong to be more like Toph. But instead you have this strict police chief that she behaves like Toph, she has the attitude of Toph, but she's doing everything that Toph in her youth was against. Right. So it's not really consistent. So it would have made more sense to me for her children to be sort of outlaws and lawbreakers than for it to be. Yeah. You know, understand what I'm saying? That didn't really make sense to me either.
Yeah, I think it was just that would definitely just caught me off guard most of anything. I was just like, I don't really understand that. So there's a lot of people that were disappointed with that, seeing how extreme it was as far as like her parenting skills. And also moving on to the next subject, which is
and they made Toph a jerk in Legend of Korra, and she was a big jerk. And she was not that growing up. From the beginning, from when we first saw her in, I believe, what was it, season 2, from the time that we saw her in Legend of Korra, are two different people. Toph was mean and she was harsh, but she wasn't a jerk. There's a difference. Yeah, she was always a good person, and she always cared for other people. And the Toph from Avatar: Legend of Avatarthelastairbender, when her kids confronted her, she would have made a change. She would have been like, oh, I didn't realize I was affecting you like that. I thought I was just taking care of myself, and I thought I was doing something good for you. I didn't realize I was hurting you. She would have changed that. But for her to be a complete jerk, I would like to know what happened from that time period, from between that time period to Korra to make her that way.
Right.
And especially for her to go from being for her to be a police chief and to be like a jerk like that. It's a weird dynamic. It's a weird. I think they were trying to show, well, they aren't perfect, but with Toph they went overboard.
Right. Yeah, she was complete. Like, she was.
And if you wanted to make her a bad mother, just don't do the police chief thing. Like, still make her continue to be an outlaw, and that way you have a story with her. Well, when Aang was building this and Sokka was building that, and she felt out of place because she wasn't really a person who did things like that. So in that case, now you have a situation where she's sort of an outlaw out of the rest of them. She separates herself from the rest of them. That's a storyline that would make sense. That's something that would be consistent with Toph's character. Especially if you want to create like a rift between the families and different things like that. But it doesn't make sense for Toph to be that bad of a mother. And it doesn't make sense for her to be that much of a jerk. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I just feel like her character definitely deserved more than that as far as like how she raised her family. Because like I said, even despite all the things she went through growing up, I feel like she really deserved to have, you know, at least like, you know, and I feel like she would have enjoyed having a family of her own. And it seemed like she didn't really enjoy that too much. Like, she enjoyed it from a distance, but she didn't actually enjoy it. You know what I'm saying?
Especially with the fact of what she wanted from her parents.
Right.
She wanted from her parents what based off of what she wanted from her parents, she should have been a better mother in that show.
Exactly.
So it doesn't make sense for them to make her such a bad mother when her desire after she left home was to have her parents. All she wanted was her parents to understand her. That's it. So it wasn't a situation where she didn't like family or she hated family or anything like that. She just wanted her family to understand her.
Right.
So for her to be a bad mother and be the complete opposite of what her parents were, when she saw her parents as good parents, she loved her parents. It's just that they were overprotective and they didn't understand what she was trying to do. It doesn't make sense for her to go the complete left of her parents when she loved and respected her parents. It doesn't make sense.
That is very true. Very, very, very true. So if you guys have anything you want to say on that, drop it in the comments. Come on, like, comment. But moving on to the next part. We're moving on to, I came across an article that's titled, the article is titled, Legend of Korra ruins the best character in Legend of Korra ruins the best character in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now this article is focused around Toph and how they felt like, her character definitely missed the mark compared to the other character developments. I feel like hers missed the mark the most. And this is why they thought that way. Mainly because of the fact that she invented the whole police force type setup in Legend of Korra. That was a big issue because people felt as if it didn't fit her character. Like for Toph being a defiant type of, I want to say like she'll be a criminal at times. You know what I'm saying? Like she just wasn't the type to, you know, like create, like, you know, be into that kind of thing. It just didn't fit her character, is what they were saying. And everybody knows everything that's going on now with police brutality. They related that to an episode in Legend of Korra. It's season 1, episode 8 in Legend of Korra. When a police force forced a curfew on the non-benders. So they, it's basically systematic oppression, where you had the equalists out there, so they felt like they needed to lock down and control the whole non-bending community. And that related to a lot what was going on here in America, where you have the issue with Black Americans with having issues with police brutality. So in the article, it highlighted that to where it was upsetting to see that they would kind of mess up her character in that way. The police
force that she began was her image was tarnished because the people who took it over were oppressive.
Right. So it basically said it kind of ruined her, like, her character. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just wasn't what we would like want to see from her. And we wouldn't relate it to her.
We wouldn't relate it back to Toph if it wasn't for the fact that her daughter was the police chief right after her.
Right.
It would have been, the story would have been a lot different. But the fact that number one, Toph creates a police force, which doesn't make sense.
Right.
Number 2, Lin Beifong takes it over, and now you have a situation where people aren't treated equally. In a sense, Sokka was the first equalist. This wasn't him saying that there was a bias between non-benders and benders. Wasn't something new. That was something that was said in Last Airbender. So it was something that was consistent with who Sokka was. Toph never in any way expressed any kind of interest in Avatar: The Last Airbender in a police force and building a police force and protecting the people. That's not something that she was about. She was always about carrying her own weight. So carrying her own weight didn't mean, oh yeah, let's go start a police force. She wasn't that kind of person. So like I said, I would like to know what happened between Last Airbender and Legend of Korra and everything in between for her there to be such a dramatic change in what she wanted to do.
Yeah, it said that she basically became the symbol of systematic oppression, and I feel like
that's a little extreme.
Yeah, I feel like that was a bit extreme because I feel like for me it's not outlandish that she would want to protect people, especially with metal being like they're gonna need protection and they're gonna need some type of order with everything that they're doing. Yeah, so I feel like in some ways the article is a bit extreme on some levels because I don't feel like it was, of course I feel like that wasn't right, but I feel like that goes back to what we talked about in the last video. We talked about how basically this their focus is on the benders. They weren't thinking about the benders and non-benders. So when you create a police force, your main thing is going to be we need to stop benders and stuff like that. You're not really going to be thinking about keeping them under control. You're not really thinking about the people who actually need that protection, which is the non-benders. So I feel like that's just like a flaw in the system where they neglected protecting the people who needed the protection the most. That's basically what it comes down to. And I think if they would have kept that in mind, they wouldn't really have that issue of, I guess, the oppression, you would say. I feel like that has a lot to do with it because they didn't really have them in mind when they created this police force. So of course, things like this is gonna happen when even their system isn't exactly the way it should be.
No, it would have made really good sense for Sokka to have been the one to create the police force. To protect non-benders from benders. You understand what I'm saying? So that would have been something that would have made more sense. Or even if they had just dropped something in there to protect Toph's legacy by saying this is not what Toph created. You understand what I'm saying? Right. The corruption inside of the police force, it would have been for them to say this is not what Toph created. This is not what Toph created the police force to do.
Yeah, right.
So that way you protect her reputation. You understand what I'm saying? Because they did that for Korra. I mean, they did that for Katara and they did that for Aang, saying, well, this is not what Aang stood for. This is not what Katara stood for. So why can't you protect Toph in that way? If that makes sense. So she was just sort of through Legend of Korra, she was really in a way dragged through the mud, and Sokka was in a sense sort of just left out. So for Sokka to sort of just be glossed over, and for Toph to be repainted into a person that we don't remember, it's two really important characters that really just got botched.
I definitely would love to get the background as of why it was like the police force and everything that was created in the first place, so that we know why at least. Because you have to think about, like, after she left the police force, you have to know that there's corruption. And the type of, like, system that they created, there's corruption. So, of course, it's not going to be the type of system that would originally have been. So, if you see why it was created and what it was intended for and how it was done, you'll see, like, why it is. Like, you'll see the difference as of, like, what it became after she left. Like, obviously, it's not the same thing it was when she first created it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I think it would have been cool to kind of get that context before just, like, being like, oh, well, she created, the face of oppression and stuff like that. That it became like that, I feel like. I don't think that's how it was intended to be. That's basically the conclusion, guys. Toph, they just basically kind of...
They botched
I feel like they botched her character. It was very disappointing, Really wish they gave her... She definitely deserved... Her character deserved more than what they gave her, for sure.
I think Sokka deserved more. I think Sokka deserved more of an explanation. I think Toph definitely needs more of an explanation.
I think every character deserved more, like a lot. Every original character, like, basically deserved more, in my opinion.
I think I would have liked. There's a lot of people I would have liked to see more of in this series that we just straight up didn't see.
Yeah, Sokka was my biggest disappointment. Was not seeing Sokka for sure, but. Tune in for next week. You'll see. I don't know which topic we're going to do yet. We're going to choose which one we're going to do next.
There's a lot of topics.
There's so many topics we're going to go over, guys. So definitely subscribe, like, subscribe, like.
Do it all. Do it all twice.
Yeah. comment for sure any thoughts that you have. If you're watching Legend of Korra now and there's something that you would like us to talk about or something like that, definitely put in the comments, or your opinions on this issue, put in the comments as well. Whatever you have to say, drop it in the comments, you guys. And definitely stay tuned for these videos will be coming out every Friday, so definitely stay tuned for that every single Friday. So definitely subscribe, guys. Subscribe.
Alright, y'all. Deuces.
Bye. See y'all next video.